Alright, so fresh off the heels of UFC 314 just took place in Miami, Florida. I'm pretty happy about the result of the main event. I don't know what you guys thought about like the card. It felt like one of those retro 2022-2023 cards where it wasn't maybe the best, but it was basically just like a standard card from that year. And we've been getting cards of a far reduced quality. I was talking about it with my friend. I feel like the UFC started to get like bad, kind of, whenever Israel Adesanya lost to Sean Strickland. I feel like that was the exact point in history whenever a shift took place and the sport began to get worse. Tonight, though, I think it had to do with just an old time champion coming back and fighting. It felt kind of like a retro event. Like the new style of UFC cards, it was kind of broken. The mold was different tonight. The vibes were great. And I want to talk about each of the fights, give a recap of my predictions and all the things that did or did not happen that I said would. So here we go. We're going to get right into it. It's going to be Nora Cornell versus Haley Cowan, the first fight. This fight was an oddity because Haley Cowan actually kind of dominated the first round against Nora Cornell, and all they did was grapple. She kind of held her in this position where she was free to attempt an arm triangle whenever she wanted, and Nora Cornell just kind of laid there, which was uncharacteristic of Nora Cornell, but she did miss weight, and I saw that leading into this fight, so I was thinking, it's kind of a coin flip whenever a fighter misses weight. Are you either going to be the case of someone who just didn't bother to cut weight and you came in heavy, or did you try to make the weight and it was like a botched weight cut and now you're going to perform bad because you're still dehydrated? You kind of roll the dice here, so it might have been a little bit of the second one, to be honest. In the first round, she was getting controlled. The second round rolls around. Haley Cowan looks like she's about to set up some more wrestling. She goes for the signature WMMA head and arm throw that always ends up getting reversed, and that's exactly what happened. It backfired. She got her back taken and then transitioned into an armbar perfectly, and the fight was over from there. I said that if this was going to be contained to like a grappling match, Nora Cornell is definitely so much better than Haley Cowan is at grappling that the outcome of this fight was probably going to be an inevitability. I felt like a genie Bonini whenever Nora Cornell got her hand raised for the submission. So that takes us on to the next fight. What we'll discuss now is going to be Tresean Gore versus Marco Tulio, and we need to give Marco Tulio some money. Somebody needs to give him some money. I think Dana White needs to give this guy a check. Like, if anyone deserves a performance bonus, it's Marco Tulio tonight. He had one of the best fights of the entire night. I was kind of holding out on saying that this was going to be the best performance because I was already calling it even 2 fights in, but he definitely had the best fight of the night. He fought Tresean Gore. This guy is a 185 shoot-a-box flyweight. And it doesn't even make any sense for me to say. He literally fights like a flyweight. It's crazy. His output is so insane. And his strikes and strike arsenal is so dynamic. He was slapping this guy with wheel kicks in the first round. He was throwing a lot of turning body side kicks that missed. Apparently, he also hurt his right hand in the first round, but continued to throw it anyways like a Chad. This guy is amazing, bro. He's a mutant. We need to definitely put this guy on the Kopylov title run fast track pace because he deserves it, and I think that he's more than capable of handling the workload that comes with it. Marco Tulio is that guy. He can stuff a takedown. He has really good striking up elbows he was throwing at Tresean Gore. Made the dude bleed, made him quit. And Tresean Gore is a very tough fighter and hard to get up out of there. And the fact that Marco Tulio came out and sparked him the way that he did, very good stuff. Diego Lima is doing a very good thing over there. I think it's kind of crazy that they don't dye their hair blonde anymore. He doesn't do it. I think he said that he just wants to like keep his hair. So he's not going to do that every single time one of his fighters fights. But Marco Tulio didn't come out with the platinum blonde. He still has the power of the Shooter Box Academy, though, so very cool stuff. I'm very excited to see what he'll do in the future. We need to get him in a match made with someone ranked very soon. The next fight was going to be Suma Derji versus Mitch Raposo. We got the first two right. We're off to a great start. I predicted exactly how they were going to go. This fight, I took a chance and I selected Mitch Raposo, and I will never do this again. Mitch Raposo is the most docile striker on the UFC roster, and as a grappler, he is pretty inoffensive as well. This dude was fighting Sumaderji like Sumaderji was a white belt who had just walked into the dojo, and he was like trying not to hurt him. It was crazy. Mitraposo's wrestling, he would get the fight to the ground and Sumaderji would just stand back up. I think it was because of Mitraposo's short base. He couldn't break his legs once he got to the ground. Not physically break his legs, but just his base down so he could keep him down on the floor. So all of his attempts at wrestling were super ineffective. He shot 19 times and he landed 6 takedowns, but he really didn't have a significant amount of control. And he got cleanly outstruck by this guy as well. Whenever they were at range, Sumaderji was just piecing this guy up. And that was pretty uneventful because Sumaderji, he doesn't have finishing capabilities, as he's proven against fighters like Matt Schnell, where he's actually getting finished by those guys and landing his best shots on them and not putting them away. And Matt Schnell has a Rice Krispie chin. I wasn't expecting Mitraposo to just be getting worked by him the way that he did. I'll remember this. I'll remember this. And I'm sorry. If you put money on Mitraposo because I told you to, my bad, fella. We're going to move up the card now. That's going to be Cedric Dumas versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. This was a mid-off. And Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, he may be the warden of all trash fighters. There is probably a threshold that you have to get past in order to beat Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. And if you're not there, he is going to knock you out. I'm not sure what was going on with Cedric Dumas tonight. He looked like a free trial guy at the gym, dude. I'm not sure what that boxing was. He couldn't get his hands going at all. It was a very frustrating display that Cedric Dumas put on, especially after I was riding so high on like the fact that he had been working so hard in videos. That's the power of the internet, you know? You can look like an absolute gangster online, and then whenever it comes to it, you can't fake the funk. So in closing, basically Cedric Dumas is going to beat Timu Kevin Holland. None of the grappling ability, which is like entirely limited to begin with. None of the striking. More tattoos and longer hair. The next one then is going to be Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. And man, Darren Elkins has like, I say blood and guts style where he's like just on that just bleed type stuff. But man, he got completely outclassed here. And he never stood a chance in this fight to make it like a really grindy war. Julian Erosa stayed completely clean this whole time. And the sequence that ended up leading to Darren Elkins getting knocked out was so clean. Julian Erosa, this was the night of the perfect counters. Picture perfect counters all night that were just leading to beautiful finishes. And it was after Darren Elkins had already taken a lot of damage. Julian Erosa is a very good kickboxer. And I remember I likened him to Cub Swanson in the predictions video before this, and that was the reason why I picked him. This guy is probably better than Cub Swanson. And it's pretty hard to quantify exactly how good he is, just because he's had pretty lackluster performances in the past on the off occasions, and then he's won really important fights and has been having really good showings lately. So Julian Erosa might be him. It's very interesting to look on now to see who he is going to fight in the featherweight division, because it seems like there might be a little bit of a log jam going on already that we may discuss as we move up the card. The next fight is going to be Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. This was just a standard grappling match between an old man and a young purple belt at the jiu-jitsu gym. An old blue belt ex-Marine and a young purple belt at the jiu-jitsu gym. And this happens, and the young purple belt who just smoked weed in the parking lot before he walked inside is just tossing around the old Marine. And that was basically what was going on. Chase Hooper was just more young and capable to do more things from different positions than Jim Miller was, and he just couldn't keep up with the pacing of the grappling scrambles. And so he ended up just getting his back taken and controlled for most of the fight. And Chase Hooper was able to get into mount positions and attack submissions like all throughout each round that he was able to get the fight to the floor, which was pretty much all of them. So Chase Hooper is the man. This was an important test because you have to be able to get past the crafty vet. Jim Miller is definitely on a recession right now. He does hold records in the UFC, which are very important. I think he wants to add to them, but I'm not really sure where he goes from here. Chase Hooper definitely has a lot more to show. But lately, he's just been on a Jake Paul run, really, just beating up Clay Guida and Jim Miller. So hopefully they can give him someone younger than the age of 800 years old. This dude is fighting dudes older than dragons from Skyrim. The next fight is going to be Yan Jianan versus Verna Jandiroba. And man, what is up with Yan Jianan's grappling, dude? Yan Jianan's grappling is pretty miserable. And if you, I'm not trying to undermine Verna Jandaroba's grappling because she's actually very good at it, but Yan Jianan has serious technical issues on the mat that she needs to go work out. Because as a boxer, she's okay. I think that she had some pretty solid moments in like the later rounds, but Verna Jandaroba just completely controlled this fight. Armbar setups, she was getting subs locked in, and Yan Jianan was repeatedly being saved by the bell. All of the rounds ended with Verna Jandaroba dominating. She just controlled totally. Verna Jandaroba is going to get to the belt, and she'll be met there by other fighters like, I think maybe Jacqueline Cavalcanti, but she may be a flyweight, strawweight, I don't know. Shevchenko's just gotta go, man. So Verna Jandaroba is champion. That would honestly be pretty cool. She, I'm not even gonna say it. You know what I'm thinking about saying. I'm gonna be nice. So the next fight, I'm not gonna be nice now. We're gonna talk about Sean Woodson versus Dan Ige. This was such a Mickey Mouse stoppage, dude. And it really blows because on top of the fact that the stoppage was poor, Sean Woodson was up 2 rounds on all 3 judges' scorecards. And if the ref ultimately decides that the fight is over, I mean, what can you do about it? But they robbed him of the opportunity to get knocked out, like, properly, so that there was no question as to whether or not he could have continued. Because, I mean, I will concede the fact that Sean Woodson took a risk and he just launched a naked uppercut in the middle of the 3rd round, and he got winged by Dan Ige slipping off to the side and launching an overhand that was kind of catching him, and he was rolling with it at other times in the fight. This time it landed flush and it busted him up, and he was moving on the retreat. Dan Ige started mixing to the body. Once he did that, Sean Woodson started shelling. He shot a takedown and then started getting elbowed in the side of the head. And then from there, the ref was like stopping the fight because he saw 12-6 elbows go towards the back of Sean Woodson's head. Which, I mean, I want to try to make concessions for that ref, but dude, with the way that things have been going lately and how refs have kind of shifted their attitudes towards stopping fights early because they don't want to be known as the ref who has the early stoppages, shame on that guy, honestly. And I don't want to, like, these are people, you know? But imagine if you're playing a video game and, like, your character is at half health, and then the game just, like, makes you reload a save because they say that you're dead, you know? Like, you want him to actually die. I feel like he would feel this way too, though, honestly. I mean, dude, he's a fighter, so I'm sure he was ready for that. I didn't want to actually see him perish, dude, or be murdered by Dan Ige, but I wanted to see him at least have the opportunity to go out on the shield and prove that this fight and the win meant something to him, because I know that it did. It felt like it was kind of taken up from him by the ref, but really it was Dan Ige who won this fight, and I'm actually just kind of salty for the fact that I picked Sean Woodson. Lately, we've been getting him kind of wrong. So far, we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 2 and 2, 3 and 2, 4 and 2, 5 and 2, 5 and 3. So those are the record right now. That was the end of the prelims. Dan Ige knocks out Sean Woodson. Didn't go down like that, you guys. If you know, you know, man. They should run it back. Honestly, they should give Sean Woodson an opportunity to fight Volkanovski now because they robbed him there. That's the only thing that's fair at this point. So right now we're going to talk about Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. This fight was radical, man, because I picked Dominic Reyes kind of on a whim, dude. And he McGregored this guy flawlessly. Nikita Krylov, ring-rusted Nikita Krylov, looked very, like, jab-happy and excited to be back in fight. He ran right into a straight right pull counter from Dominic Reyes, and it actually looked just like Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor, and they're already making mashup comparison videos on the internet about it. And it was just so perfect. And Dominic Reyes almost started crying, and, like, that's deserved for all the things that he went through. This guy was just getting knocked out by Ryan Spann. It's a big deal that he's back now and that he actually is able to win fights against top contenders because he was not doing that before. So he didn't call for a name after this, which the thing that he did say was one more fight and then the title. So he actually is in title contention now, having beaten Nikita Krylov. This is a really bad matchup for everyone in the division. And Dominic Reyes dispatched him, so lots of points. There's nothing to really even say other than just kudos and like just a standing ovation for Dominic Reyes. I see him get a knockout in 2025. Makes me happy, makes me smile, man. He can do it. So, bro, if Dominic Reyes became champion over Magomed Ankalaev, bro, people would get so hyped for that. I would be so gassed. So, we'll see. Performance of the night going to Gene Silva. I guess that makes sense. I've already kind of repressed this fight from my memory, dude. Bryce Mitchell, he did not want to get... He was not trying to get out of there. And he was clinging to life with everything. And Gene Silva really did it to Bryce Mitchell. He put that boy on a shirt. And it wasn't even close, bro. I mean, I guess there were moments where Bryce Mitchell was able to level change and get to the hips, but Gene Silva's takedown defense is actually super intelligent, and he was able to just scoop an underhook and just scoot off of the cage every single time, perfectly circling away from the takedown. Bryce Mitchell tried the takedown. He was trying to attack Gene Silva's leg, but the thing that really did it was after the first round, Bryce Mitchell, I think that he ended up securing a takedown, but he tried wrestling through like the second half. He was getting touched, bro, and I think that he even got dropped by Gene Silva. But in the second round, Bryce Mitchell did not want to touch Gene Silva's glove. And in the first round, he also didn't want to touch Gene Silva's glove. And he just immediately started boxing with him whenever like the first bell rang. He walked out of the corner with his hand raised, like trying to touch Bryce Mitchell's hand. And Bryce Mitchell was like, "Nah, brother, we're going to do this right now." And then Gene Silva got like really mad and started speaking Portuguese to Bryce Mitchell. And it was crazy, dude. And he just got very angry and then started slashing, dude. It was... Gene Silva really breaks people with just how imposing he is as just a person standing in front of you. He really is a dangerous guy. And he really is, like, very fortified for this weight class, too. There's a reason why he almost didn't make weight. He's a big guy, man. And he looks just stronger and more physically capable than Bryce Mitchell. And a lot of other people that he's fought as well. And I wouldn't... Oh, man, would I even go as far as to say that? He looked like a champion tonight. He looked like a guy who could fight with a dude. He's in the same position, basically, as Dominic Reyes. Gene Silva and Dominic Reyes are, like, the same right now as far as their spot from the title. I genuinely believe that if Gene Silva wins one more important fight, he's right there in the title contention. Like, super dominant stuff. He was attacking all types of chokes. Guillotines that he almost landed. And then ninja chokes that he did land, you know, maybe even a Darce attempt was in there too. Gene Silva can really do it all. I think it's funny as well, through like the build-up, Gene Silva says he wins the fight and does nothing but bark. He walks out, he's barking. And then he wins the fight and he's talking about Bryce Mitchell and he says, "I really thought the fact that like he didn't like me was just kind of a joke. And then I went to go for the glove touch, and I realized that he didn't actually like me, and I realized, wow, there's something wrong with this guy because of the way that he's acting." And he's like, he literally gets off of the mic and just starts barking like a dog afterwards. But, I mean, this is standard stuff for him, I guess. He has a crazy story. You definitely need to do research into, like, I don't want to talk about his family, but, dude, what happened to his mom? And what he witnessed happen to his mom and what his mom did in response to what happened to her. Dude, Gene Silva has a crazy story. So, I mean, I'll never desecrate the fact that he's won a fight because he deserves all the success that comes to him. He has noble goals. I don't like the Lord stuff, though, but I guess it means gentleman in Portuguese. So it's almost like God isn't partial to winners in a fist fight. Or God doesn't exist just solely for the purpose of granting people victory in a fist fight for money. That might not be a far-fetched thing to think. And the fact that Bryce Mitchell wanted to make this about his duty to God to fight and win a fight against Gene Silva for money, I'm not sure if that imbued him with any additional power that he otherwise would have had in this fight. I think he actually did pretty well, but then he just started getting beat up, and that's typically what happens. He's pretty on level with whatever competition he's facing at the start of a fight, and then if they're significantly better than he is, that'll show up within probably 7 minutes of the first bell. It took about 9 this time, but Gene Silva is a troll. He subbed to Bryce Mitchell in round 2. So give him some money too. I think that Marco Tulio definitely deserved to get paid. God, there was actually so many good performances though. We're going to talk about a next good performance. And it comes from a guy who I don't like, and that's the reason why I picked against him. And I need to stop doing that. Like, I know I say that I have the best betting advice, but I'm not a bettor, dude. I just want to see what would be the most interesting outcomes. I should really start titling those videos basically like most interesting outcome for each event. I'll see how that does, honestly, versus like saying fight predictions. Because, I mean, it's what I think, but basically I'm going for the most interesting outcomes. It would have been cool if Patricio Pitbull came and introduced himself as a very dangerous featherweight. But that did not happen. Yair Rodriguez whooped that ass, bro, and it wasn't even freaking close. Patricio Pitbull, he wrestled with him for like a little bit, and they were clinching for like a little bit. And in one of these grappling sequences, Yair Rodriguez catches him on the back of the head. And Patricio Pitbull complains about this for like the entire rest of the round and into the second round too. It's Pitbull shit because this guy just basically spent the entire fight watching Yair. He just stood and watched him the whole time. Yair Rodriguez was just kicking this guy and cycling. Patricio Pitbull would get hit with an insane shot and just wave on Yair to keep coming at him instead of going first and initiating. And that's literally just Bellator-ism in his brain that he can't get rid of. There's no way that these guys are serious whenever they come to the UFC and they fight the way that they do. Think that they're going to win against the best fighters in the world. Yair Rodriguez isn't the best out of the best fighters in the world for the fact that he has a vulnerability to grappling, but Patricio Pitbull looked like he had a vulnerability to everything in there. And he's 37 too, so I should have seen the writing on the wall. I thought that Father Time could be beaten. Being older in this division is very punishing. So, 37 years old, he looked very slow. And cognitively, he looks like he wasn't thinking very fast in order to do what he needed to do in this fight. So, he got beat up. And he was getting wrestled by Yair Rodriguez, which I'm sure that was on nobody's bingo card. Patricio Pitbull just getting wrestled and sunned the way that he did. It's so hard for me to fathom this fight going the way that it did. Bellator is such a joke. Out of all the major promotions, the fighters that Bellator produced they have the biggest differential and skill between UFC fighters and fighters out of any other promotion. Bellator might be the can promotion, and you might actually be dog water if you come out of Bellator, bro. So, we'll talk about the co-main event now. Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. And dude, it was really satisfying to watch Michael Chandler get beat up the way that he did. And it wasn't something that I was really in the mood for until Michael Chandler did something illegal. He kicked Paddy Pimblett in the balls flush with a front kick. And like, I know you could say they didn't mean to do it because they did kick at the same time, but it's a very funny coincidence, right? That every single time that Michael Chandler fights, there's always something super illegal that happens that he does. And he always plays it off as an accident. And I'm not trying to take the Dustin Poirier approach here and call Michael Chandler just an objectively dirty fighter. But hell, he might be, bro. And Paddy Pimblett got pissed off, bro, after he got kicked in the balls. Because the fight was competitive through the rounds leading into the second, whenever Paddy started grappling. But I mean, even the first round, bro, Paddy Pimblett was just kind of mixing this guy. Something that really kind of threw me off is how much of a mutant freak Paddy Pimblett is. Like, he's actually super large. It looks like he gains back the fat from the burgers in the off season, like whenever he rehydrates. and he doesn't stay frail and weak at all. He was bigger than Michael Chandler, and he mogged Michael Chandler, who's like Mr. Muscle Man. He's compressed muscle, and Paddy Pimblett is a large person and is still like pretty buff, dude. And he was picking up Michael Chandler. He was throwing his ass. He was kicking his leg. His boxing looks kind of weird, like not the best, but he stays defensively sound enough and is just good enough at everything else to the point where his boxing is basically exactly where it needs to be right now, as he still has a lot more time to develop it as he grows as a fighter. And it's funny that we're talking about this right now, but dude, Paddy Pimblett could actually go very far in the UFC in this division. In the Shark Tank that is lightweight, Paddy Pimblett tonight, based off of the way that he beat Michael Chandler, he looked like the only guys who could really give him competitive fights in this division would be like Arman Sarukian and Islam Makhachev. And Islam is definitely a level above everybody. But, bro, I got Paddy Pimblett above Hinato. I got Paddy Pimblett above Fiziev at this point. Bro, even Dustin Poirier, Gaethje as well. I would say Paddy Pimblett wins those fights. And this is going to be something that blows people's mind. And I think that it should happen as a title eliminator. Paddy Pimblett needs to fight Charles Oliveira, bro. Just so that we can see that grappling matchup, because it would be actually insane. And there's no question in my mind that Paddy Pimblett is stronger than Charles Oliveira is. So he could control this fight on the ground and in the clinch. And he probably has more power in his hands than Charles Oliveira. So Paddy Pimblett, he's been quietly working really hard. He's been really good at fighting this whole time. He's just been really just getting unlucky with his injuries that have been taking place and all the things in between, you know? Stinky fights with Jared Gordon and underperforming in fights against Tony Ferguson and not looking like he's going to do anything or be anything. He's been white hot lately. This was a crazy fight. He knocked out Michael Chandler, dude, with the TKO. He was throwing 12-6 elbows at Michael Chandler's, at his spine, bro. And the ref was like, hey, cut it out. And I saw him mouth his, he mouthed to the announcers after the nut shot. He said, cheating bitch or cheating bastard. And then whenever he was throwing those shots at his spinal cord, he whispered, or I read his lips, he mouthed, yeah, see, I can cheat too, motherfucker. Or I can cheat too, bitch. Yeah, bro, that was so lit. And then he basically ends up working his way into mount and then just elbows the crap out of Michael Chandler. And he cut him with one of these strikes that he had thrown on the feet. It was a knee. It was a really well-timed knee that cut open Michael Chandler, and he started bleeding a ton. I didn't even see his face afterwards, bro, but in the finishing sequence, he looked like a maimed animal. So the second I go on Instagram to look for that, and I do see the way that he looks, whenever he posts photos of himself, holy crap, what we're going to see is going to blow our minds. Paddy Pimblett is a force to be reckoned with. Guy is he has nuclear power, which is crazy. I think we have another Duplessis variant on our hands, bro. Just all cardio and heart. I saw some blitzes out of this guy too, man, and just insane grappling. This dude might honestly become his own archetype of fighter if he hangs around long enough, and wins enough fights, bro, because he's really not like anybody that we've ever seen before. And that's what makes it special. I actually care about lightweight in part just because Paddy Pimblett is in the division and is an active fighter there, which is crazy for me to say because we never expected him to achieve anything. That takes us on to the main event. The main event was Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. And Volkanovski fought like Volkanovski always does. And that's at a high level. He does a lot of things right and makes very few mistakes. He has very good IQ and mixes the martial arts better than anyone in the division, even including Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria just has the off switch and can just hit that button anytime that he wants. So that's the vulnerability that Alexander Volkanovski has, because he did get dropped in this fight. So in that moment where you are able to tag him, if you can shut the lights out, you can win a fight against Alexander Volkanovski, because he's probably not going to get off the hook clean against these top level guys. But Diego Lopez demonstrated that in this Max Holloway, Ilia Topuria, and Alexander Volkanovski grinder, Those three guys are a rung above the rest of the contenders in that division. Just like I was talking about before, Islam is a like ring above the rest of lightweight. And it's hard to be competitive with these guys who have just ascended, basically. They've transcended the theory of fighting at their weight class to the point where they are so good at it that you, as a developing fighter, or even someone who has lots of experience, still get melted by them just because they've been around for so long and have experienced so much at the highest level that their reps, you can't touch it, bro. His output and his cardio was so great. His jab was working so well. He was diversifying with the leg kick, chopping at the leg, throwing the body kick, working the lead high kick, dude. He was mixing in grappling, changing levels. He was hurting Diego Lopez with these overhands. Overhands and lead hooks in close. I knew at the very beginning of the fight, Alexander Volkanovski moves into range and he throws basically like a rear hook and a lead hook. And both of the punches land and Diego Lopez eats both of them, but his face changes a little bit. And that's when I was like, okay, like this fight is probably going to go to Volkanovski because he's able to score. And he scored like a lot very early. At the very beginning of the first round, Volkanovski was up so much. Let's see the strike stats. In round 1, yeah, 31 total strikes to 11. He got to work immediately and just started beating the crap out of Diego Lopez. And if you want this output fighter, then you're just going to get melted by Volkanovski. You need to have output or you need to have a lot of power if you are going to just like rely on that one opportunity to finish the fight against Volk. Diego Lopez did not have the grappling to not get wrestled, and he did not have the power to shut off Volk whenever he had an opportunity to drop him. Diego Lopez, I think he went out sad in this fight. The moment, it might have been too much for him. I feel like there's a new fighter curse, bro, that was unlocked in this last fight week's media day. If you cry in the fight week build-up, you might be cursed to lose. Because Diego Lopez, he did this like segment with the UFC talking about the reason why he fights. And it was a bunch of videos of his family wishing him good luck. And he saw all the videos and he cried. But think about it. Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, there's a lot of other fighters. Crying afterwards is another thing. But if you cry beforehand, you might actually lose the fight. So that's just a personal theory of mine. Alexander Volkanovski looked like an absolute Chad. He didn't lose a step at all. And whatever step he might have lost in those 2 consecutive knockout defeats that he suffered, he's gained it back. And he looks like he's in peak form. This was a retro Volk performance. And it's really nice to see him fight new featherweights instead of all the old ones who are just Max Holloway again. Because he can beat these dudes up. And it's time for us to watch this because Ilia Topuria, his bit was cool, but his whole thing was literally just getting rid of fighters that we like. Like, he just wanted to just eliminate all of them. So, for Volk to have come back and to not have gotten slimed out by Diego Lopez like I thought he was going to, very big deal. I was super happy about it. So, I'm going to be smiling all throughout this week at my job. And even in these videos, too, I'm going to be happy whenever I remember that Volkanovski is going to be the featherweight champion of the world, and Ilia Topuria is an unranked lightweight on April 14th, 2025. So yeah, this is our celebration, you guys. I'm going to go to sleep now because I feel like a Walking Dead zombie.